Halacha Yomi. We're in 34, page 290. Even though stomach pain does not usually indicate anything serious, in some instances it can be life-threatening. Therefore, if a person has very severe or sudden sharp stomach pain, and you're not sure the cause of it, it could be life-threatening. So therefore, a person is allowed Mechalel Shabbat for it. Similarly, if there's pain in the lower right part of the stomach, it could be a sign of appendicitis. A person's appendix can blow up, Chaz v'shalom, cause him internal bleeding. So a person has to be careful, and if he has very sharp pain, and that bottom left side, lower right side of the stomach, so you can go and take care of it on Shabbat. Pain in the right or the center of the abdomen towards the back is a sign of a gallbladder attack. It also requires immediate medical attention. Okay, let's say 35. Many times the stomach pain in a child can also be life-threatening, and then the child might need medical attention if this following things happen to him. Let's say severe cramping, high fever, pale. He looks pale. He's vomiting. He has blood in the things that are coming out of him. Pain that's many hours. All these things can sometimes also be caused by food poisoning as well. So therefore, that also could be life-threatening. Just because a person has diarrhea doesn't mean it's life-threatening. It usually lasts 1 day, 2 days. But you have to be careful. It can lead to dehydration. Dehydration is definitely life-threatening. And a person has to go to the hospital if you're dehydrated. 38. Someone who has intense toothache on Shabbat and the doctor said this tooth needs to be removed. He's allowed to have the tooth removed on Shabbat by a non-Jewish doctor. However, if he's experiencing intense pain and it's not being solved by taking painkillers, especially if he had an infection, that could be life-threatening also by the gums. So therefore, a person is allowed to even be taken care of by a Jewish doctor. He's allowed to violate Shabbat also to get treatment. 39, let's say, God forbid, somebody drank poison. Yeah? He drank poison and took too much medication. That's life-threatening. You're allowed to violate Shabbat to receive treatment. Let's say a food allergy. Someone's allergic to nuts. I know a person who's allergic to nuts or to bees or to certain things, or like eggs. There's a guy I know, he's allergic to eggs. So what happens? My mistake, he ate something, he didn't realize that it had eggs or it had nuts. He ate it. And now what happens? He says usually they have to carry an EpiPen with them. The pen, you stab them, it gives them like a adrenaline shot, they're able to, not die. So because what happens is, if they don't take care of it, they don't go to the hospital, or they don't get a shot, then they're going to stop breathing. Everything's going to start swelling, and then they're going to pass out and die. Therefore, they have to go to the hospital immediately if they have a serious food allergy. Some people are allergic to certain things. You never know. It's always derech eretz to ask. If you have a guest, anybody allergic to anything, because sometimes they don't know what's in the food. You put something they're allergic to, you don't know. Oh, you're allergic to eggs. Oh, don't eat this. Oh, I didn't know this had eggs. Person has to be careful. Okay, 41. Someone who has a fever of 104 or higher has to try to take Tylenol, has to try to take fever-reducing medicine. If it doesn't help and it continues and nobody knows why he's having such a high fever, especially as a young child or is elderly, he should go and get help immediately. Call Tzala. Okay, 42. A person's allowed to desecrate Shabbat when he's trying to find a lost child. Part of Shmir services is if there's a lost person or a lost child, you send Shmir to go look for them. What about if it's Shabbat? Yeah, even Shabbat, you're allowed to call a Shmira and look for this lost child. It's sakana, it's danger. There's danger to his life. Something might happen to him, or someone might do something to him. You don't know, a child who can't fend for himself, he might be abducted by somebody, Chaz v'shalom. So therefore, you'll be allowed to locate the lost child or a person who could be life-threatening danger. You're allowed to desecrate Shabbat for them. I know in some very religious communities, they have a gemach, child gemach. What does that mean, child gemach? If you ever find a lost kid, you bring him to this gemach, and they watch him until their parents find him. Because let's say somebody finds him, right? So how are they going to know on Shabbat where to go and find him? So they have a designated place. People, the first place they check, when their son goes missing, go to that place, go to that gemach. If he's there, if somebody found him, he probably will be there. 43. A person who was severely injured and was taken to the hospital on Shabbat, he's allowed to send a non-Jew to go tell his relatives that he's in the hospital, in order that they should come to him and assist him immediately after Shabbat. You should know that if your relative goes to the hospital, God forbid on Shabbat, it doesn't give you permission to also drive to the hospital on Shabbat. No, he's my father, so I understand. But you sent him in the Hatzalah truck, right? He's going. He has his wife went with him, right? Your mother went with him. So now, no, I have to also. I want to follow them and drive in my car, follow the Hatzalah. No, why? You're a doctor. You're treating him. No, you'll go after Shabbat. You know, you don't have to Michal Shabbat just to visit him. Maybe if you could walk, it's not such a walking distance. You can walk. To drive, to allow yourself to drive, you can't do that. And therefore, if you send non-Jew to inform your relatives, you have to make sure also tell them not to Mechal Shabbat. Tell them come after Shabbat. But you should know that I'm in the hospital. And they should daven for you, right? However, if the person injured is unconscious, one should not ask a non-Jew to inform his family on Shabbat unless there's a way for them to help him avoid a life-threatening situation. Okay. Yeah, fine. 44. One may call or even drive to a doctor to get medical advice if you're not sure if one is in a life-threatening situation, right? This is a suffix sakana. Suffix sakana also you're allowed to mechal Shabbat, right? 45. A person who's considered cholesh yesh bo sakana, a person whose life is in danger, he doesn't have to go to the closest hospital. You can even go to the farther hospital, because if you think you'll get better treatment in the farther hospital, you're allowed to go there as well. However, you're not allowed to travel to a hospital farther away if it's only because of financial considerations. So it has to be that you're getting better care. That's why you're driving to the farther hospital on Shabbat. Okay, now there's some laws for doctors. 46. A doctor is allowed to answer the phone on Shabbat, even if he's unsure if the person's calling is in danger or not. So sometimes people call the doctor for an emergency, but he's not sure if it's an emergency. All he sees is a number is calling. He's allowed to pick up, because most likely it could be it's an emergency situation. 47. Even though a doctor may drive to where he's needed to treat a person who's in life-threatening danger, he may not drive back home after he finished the treatment. Because what's the permission to drive back? I understand driving there, you're going to save a life. But why are you driving back? What's the permission? What?
Okay, for the next patient.
Oh, so you're asking a question. We're going to learn when a woman's giving birth and the husband drives the woman to the hospital, he's not allowed to turn off the car. You're right. He has to leave the car like that. Yeah. If a goy turns it off by himself, fine. It's different. But he cannot turn off the car when he gets there. But anyways, the question is, we're talking about a doctor. You're saying Hatzalah. How is Hatzalah allowed to drive back? We're going to see that. So let's finish this halacha. Instead, he may be driven home. The doctor may be driven home by a non-Jew. In such a case, being driven home by a non-Jew is permitted, even if the doctor has to travel outside the Tchum Shabbat. So you hear this? What about Hatzalah? So it's a good question. So the Ashkenazi poskim, they permit even driving back. Why? Because they say by Hatzalah, if we don't let them drive back, they're not going to go bichlal. They're not going to even go in the beginning. They're going to say, imagine every Shabbat you get a Hatzalah call, you're going to be stuck in the hospital whole Shabbat. One phone call Friday night, that's it. Whole Shabbat now you're stuck in the hospital. You can't drive back. It's going to be take me an hour and a half to walk back home. So what do? So therefore nobody's going to want to go on Hatzalah call. So therefore they permitted the drive back. But really, ideally, according to Shulchan Aruch, preferably Hatzalah should hire a goy driver. And on Shabbat, if they have a Hatzalah call, the goy driver should pick everybody up and go to they'll meet at the place where they need the treatment. And then he'll drive to the hospital and then drive the volunteers back to where they need to be. Because if they could avoid Mehal Shabbat more, it'll be better. But if there's going to be a delay and because it's not impossible to find such a driver like this, okay, so they have what to rely on. They have what to rely on to go and come back, because I think Moshe Feinstein also writes, if we don't let them go, drive back, they're not going to go instant the beginning. And then Hashem people are going to not be able to have a tzala. Okay, 48. A doctor who must work in a hospital on Shabbat, he's allowed to treat non-Jews, even though it might involve violating Shabbat. And if possible, a doctor should avoid having to work in a non-Jewish hospital on Shabbat. A doctor who works in a hospital on Shabbat on a regular basis should ask his rabbi what to do when working on Shabbat. How's he going to drive to the hospital on Shabbat? And what is he going to do with writing? What is he going to do with automatic doors and all this kind of stuff? He has a lot of things to think about, but he should try to avoid, especially a lot of students, they're in medical school. They require them to do clinicals, and they require them to do residency, and sometimes you have to be on call in the hospital on Shabbat. and they should try to go to a program where they don't require them to do this on Shabbat, this training, or sometimes they switch with another person. I'll take your day, you take my day. The person has to try to avoid these kind of situations. 49. Let's say you work on Shabbat. A doctor works Shabbat, save people's lives. Is he allowed to charge money for this that he saved people's lives on Shabbat? Doctor or a midwife may take payment for services performed on the Shabbat. Just like you're allowed to work as a rabbi and a chazan bal koreh on Shabbat and get paid for it, and they're also doing a mitzvah of saving lives, they're allowed to get paid for it. Baruch Olam.